minute.
僕が全て解き明かす。
雷鳴よ、牙を向け。
確実に。
ターゲット確認。慈悲など無用。
Wuthering Waves closed beta test presented us with two powerful DPS characters including Calcharo and Gian, and the most hyped character at the time was Calcharo because the Calcharo Yinlin team was busted back then to the point that the damage output was even closer to Gian's damage output at S0, but now you'll find him at the midsection or the bottom of many tier lists that you can find on the internet, which begs the question, what happened to Calcharo? If it's your first time here, the name is Senpai, and today we'll be diving into why I strongly believe that Calcharo is misunderstood and why I think he deserves more credit from the Wuthering Waves community. If you find this video enjoyable, helpful, or informative, then don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps me out tremendously. The reason that Wuthering Waves will always most likely be my favorite gacha game of all time is their ability to strike a balance between casual and challenging gameplay, bringing a sense of satisfaction to players who don't want to take the game too seriously and those that prefer to min-max everything and have a sweaty experience, which I belong to the latter. It's quite obvious that the majority of the player base who want a casual experience with the game will be in greater numbers, and these players will often prefer characters who are much simple and easy to play like Jinshi and Gian, while the few who like a challenge and like to play characters that they resonate with get it, will most likely be drawn to DPS characters who demand more skill expression to be played effectively like Calcharo, making characters like Gian and Jinshi a bit boring for them to play with. It will not surprise me if people who prefer to play Calcharo come from gaming titles such as Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Devil May Cry 5, or Nier Automata. But because these players are most likely in minority, a lot of players who find Calcharo cool to play with but don't want to learn complicated boss move patterns or swap cancels will go on Reddit and post stuff like this. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I don't acknowledge the fact that Calcharo has issues with his gameplay. He's one of the characters that I like to do my dailies and farm materials with, while other characters are mostly used when I'm doing the Tower of Adversity, so I'm well aware of all the problems players might be having with him. These problems associated with Calcharo's overall gameplay design include his basic attacks not lining up correctly when button spamming or simply not coming out fast enough, nerfing of Quick Swap, Death Messenger, and Mercy's long animation which makes you vulnerable to damage, his resonance skill locking you in an animation, and inability to get 3 consistent Death Messengers due to short liberation duration. Aside from these problems, the resonance energy that he acquires when he uses a Death Messenger was nerfed from 12.5 to 5 when the game was officially released due to the broken nature of quick swaps that players discovered during the closed beta test. If you're not familiar with quick swaps, it's basically starting an animation that takes a bit longer to complete, and while your character is in that animation, you can swap in another character and attack, use your skill or liberation, and then swap back to your previous character, which makes it look like you're playing 2 characters on the field at the same time. Swap cancels greatly increases energy acquisition for your whole team because your teammates' skills will be off cooldown more often when you're in your DPS character's damage mode like Calcharo's Deathblade gear state when he activates his liberation. This gave Kuro Games a reason to nerf Calcharo's Death Messenger energy acquisition, as I previously mentioned, and quick swaps by preventing your DPS character like Calcharo from keeping outro buffs from dedicated supports like Yinlin, even though your character does not technically leave the field when you do a quick swap. Aside from these problems, Calcharo's personal damage output has not been changed and has stayed the same as we saw during the closed beta test. There are also solutions that you can use to work around all these problems, which makes Calcharo's cons or disadvantages overly exaggerated by the community in my opinion. First, let's take a look at his basic attacks not lining up the way way we are used to with other DPS characters. Calcharo has 5 basic attacks in his normal state and liberation state. In his liberation state, his attacks are very fast, which help you build stacks for unleashing a death messenger. But in his normal state, it feels much slower, which seems to be an issue for some players because their subsequent attack might fail to land a parry. While this may be true to some extent, I generally don't believe that relying on subsequent attacks to land a parry is a good idea unless you're using a character like Jian. It's always a good practice to stop attacking the enemy when you see an attack that can be parried and then use your first basic attack to land the parry, which Calcharo excels at because his first basic attack consists of 2 hits and has a long reach, which makes him one of the best characters to parry with that we currently have in the game. Even Brexlent, one of the most cracked players that I know in the game so far, acknowledged this in one of his hologram tutorial videos.
And also some characters have like different reach. Some characters parry easier than others. So Calcharo, he is OP at parrying because of his sword. Like, look at the reach of this thing. It's OP, man. So much distance.
The quick swap nerf did not affect only Calcharo, but every character in the game, and while it affects his personal damage because the nerf makes you lose outro buffs, it presents the opportunity to play quick swap teams while using other top tier characters like Yinlin, Sanhua, Yang Yang, and Zhenji to do damage while Calcharo is stuck in his death messenger animation. The best part is that you don't lose echo buffs like Moonlit and Rejuvenating Glow, so making your sub DPS characters do damage while Calcharo is stuck in his death messenger animation can make up for the damage loss depending on how well you've built your sub DPS characters. I can understand the fact that players who don't enjoy playing quick swaps might find Calcharo unusable because quick swap is the most viable way of solving 2 of his notable issues, which is the death messenger vulnerability animation and his skill locking you in an animation. Calcharo can perform 3 skill attacks whether you're in his normal state or liberation state. The first and second one can be cancelled with a dash, but the third one locks you in an animation for a while before you can dash. This makes quick swap the best way to overcome this issue because after the third skill cast, all you need to do is basically swap out after holding your basic attacks to use your Forte circuit, which is an enhanced heavy attack called Mercy in your normal state. So it's not like you just have to sit there and tank the damage. The best part about Mercy and Death Messenger is that they have their own built-in resistance to interruption, so even if you don't swap out quickly enough and take damage, you will still manage to do your damage to the enemy and you can be healed back up by your healer as long as you're running one in your team. The Death Messenger in his liberation contributes to a high percentage of his damage source, so it's understandable that players have concerns with not being able to get 3 consistent Death Messengers due to his dodge counter not counting as a killing intent stack and his liberation duration being too short. But there are ways to get around this as well. After Calcharo's first basic attack in his liberation, the start of the second basic attack summons Calcharo's shadow clone to attack the enemy, so dashing at the right moment will cancel Calcharo's second basic attack, but the shadow clone will finish his attack, which counts as 1 stack. I have to admit that it looks so cool to do when you see it in slow motion. Dash cancelling the second basic attack will give you 2 stacks, so you only need to dash twice while using this tech and then basically spam the rest of your basic attacks to cast your Death Messenger. Getting attacked while you're doing this tech will most likely let you execute a dodge counter, which takes too long to execute and gives you no stacks, so all you need to do is cancel the dodge counter animation with a skill because the dodge counter animation takes too long to finish, and cancelling the dodge counter animation with your skill also counts as extra damage while giving you the time to continue the dash cancelling tech for 3 consistent Death Messengers. Always keep your eyes on your stacks so that dashing while doing the Death Messenger animation does not cancel the entire attack. Doing this tech guarantees you 3 consistent Death Messengers even if you're playing on 200 plus ping. If you have a lower ping, you can squeeze in 4 Death Messengers as well. So after everything I've said so far, what's the takeaway? Calcharo indeed has problems with his kit that prevents players from having an ease of playstyle with him, but every problem I mentioned in this video can be solved by the players themselves if they take the time to learn how to optimize his gameplay. I know Calcharo is difficult to play on mobile because of swap cancels and dash cancels, but the addition of controller compatibility in version 1.3 can help mobile players get around this issue. So at the end of the day, calling a character trash because they have a high skill ceiling might be a coping mechanism to hide the fact that you're not comfortable playing with such characters. That will be all for Calcharo. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
So please whatever.